Welcome to this webinar about CX ambition and strategy. We have done a roundtable about this topic as well. In this webinar, I will walk you through 3 subjects. So I will explain more what a CX ambition and strategy means, why it is relevant to your organization, and also take you through the steps of how to roll it out to your teams. So as an introduction, I would actually like to start with, have you thought about what customers are going to say about your brand and the interactions they have with your brand in 3 years from now? Because this is really the starting point for defining the CX ambition. The same as when you start to create a business strategy, for example, you also think of where do you want to get in 3 years from now. So the same goes for the CX ambition and strategy. So to give you an example, there's people will forget what you said, and they might forget what you did, but they never forget how you made them feel. So this is a quote to use to really get to the core of what a CX ambition and strategy means. So we really talk about the experiences that you have, that a customer has with your brand, and how you make them feel in all the interactions. Creating this doesn't happen by accident. So you actually want to set up a team with who you are going to make the CX ambition and principles. Then you also want to make a strategy of how you are going to roll this out to your team. So there's quite some work that you need to do before having this all realized in the organization. I like to start with what most companies are doing. So they build strategies, so they build business strategies. They define their vision and mission. For each of the departments, they might also have different strategies. So they have, for example, a retention program. They have a marketing strategy, a sales strategy. And they spend a lot of time and effort building these and also making sure that they implement it within their teams. So actually the same goes also for defining what is your desired customer experience and how are you going to implement it team by team. How are they going to contribute to delivering the best service you envision? So to grow the CX maturity of your company, there's a lot that is going to be involved, and we dive in one part of it, but it all starts with your customers. So you want to step into what is their perspective, how are they interacting with your company, what do they feel, what do they experience. So that's actually a starting point. And from that perspective, you want to create a shared goal in which you can direct your teams, make sure that you have internal guidance for them, for all the employees, and inform them by this is how we envision our desired customer experience and how we are then going to work together. And this looks very simple in an image like this, but it takes quite some years to really define it, roll it out. Then you can be 1-2 years ahead from now. But that's why I'm going to take you through step by step in this webinar. And if you are more interested after that, you can get in contact, because then we can see how we can tailor a program that fits your organization. So just to round off this little introduction, there's actually 2 things. So you have the customer experience on one hand, and you have customer centricity on the other. So customer experiences is more about how your service is innovated, how it is delivered to your customers and clients. On the other hand, you have the way how you are organized as an organization to make that happen, how you enable your teams in delivering the best customer experience that you want to reach. So this difference is relevant to understand, because one is going about what you're actually going to deliver to your customers and clients, and the other is more about how you organize your organization to reach that. I will dive more into CX ambition and strategy. So why is a CX ambition and strategy relevant? First of all, it brings clear direction and buy-in for the leadership to help you set your goals and steer priorities. So it's really important that the leadership is involved in creating the CX ambition and also approves actually the direction that you're going to build for the next couple of years. Then a next one is also a CX ambition, since it's a shared goal, a shared understanding of where you want to grow, focuses on customer-centric collaboration. So it really makes sure that that all the teams understand how they can best work together, and they work towards contributing to one specific customer experience. Lastly, a delivered branded customer experience. So this might be where the difference comes in. So between, like, think of a brand as bol.com or Coolblue, there is a difference in how they interact with their customers, and that might be also the differentiator why you choose for one or the other, since they might be delivering the same service. I'm going to dive a bit more into this. So what do you actually define and design? So you have, on the left hand, you have propositions, and this is an example of Green Choice. So you have all the products and services that you are offering. Next to that, you have your brand and all the things that you perceive as a customer, what you see online, what you see when you go to the stores, everything you perceive, what you hear and see. And you have the experience you get, so the way you interact with the brand. So when you call them when you have a problem, or you interact with them via the chatbot, or you look at their website, there is some information there as well. So that's the experience you get. And when we talk about the CX ambition and strategy, we actually talk about that part, so the experience that the customer has with your brand. But there's more definitions to clarify before I really dive into the topic. So you might think of, okay, but what is then the difference between the brand promise and CX principles? So brand promise is really what you communicate externally, so to your customers or to your clients. And then you have your CX principles, which is actually meant for internal guidance to your employees to realize the desired customer experience. Besides that, you also might have brand values and core values, which are more about the behavior of the employees. So that's are the core values. It can be open, driven, collaborative, as it is at Essence. And also the brand values, which are more towards the client and in the minds of their client. So this is just to clarify all the differences when we talk about it. I will take you along through 4 steps to define a CX ambition and strategy, and how you roll it out to your teams. So first of all, we dive into translating your brand promise into desired CX. And desired CX stands for the CX ambition, so the ambition you have with your customer experience. Just some examples to get started into this topic, because there's quite a lot to it. So a CX strategy is not only the CX ambition, but it also comes with a whole roadmap, a whole plan that you have for improving the customer experience. And as we see it from Essence, there are 6 capabilities, and you actually make a plan for each of them to build your CX maturity. You can start doing that by knowing where you're standing at the moment. So what is the CX maturity at the moment on these 6 capabilities, and build your plan from there. So that is part of a CX strategy. How are you going to build? Like, do you work on your measurement? Do you work on your strategy? Do you work on your way of working? There are many possibilities. So you need to align on what you are going to do for the next couple of years. And then there is the CX ambition, in which we are going to dive into a lot more in this webinar. We have the CX principles. So those are a set of statements that you actually make to guide your internal teams and to guide your employees, so they know how to contribute to delivering the desired customer experience. You actually enable the teams to do the work to contribute to that shared goal. So to dive a bit more into the CX ambition and principles on the different levels of the organization, first of all, on the more strategic level, the CX ambition and principles provide guidance for your leadership. So they set the direction for the rest of the teams, and they make the strategic choices of what themes are most important to put on the roadmap. So thereby they prioritize the bold steps that they are going to take in the next years. When you are then in the organization on a journey level, the CX ambition and principles are used to prioritize the initiatives. So you have planned what initiatives to put on the roadmap, or you have a backlog, and then you use the CX principles. So for example, one saying, I get help right away, or the other, a partner who supports me, that guides in what kind of priorities you give to the initiatives on the backlog. And then you can do that for each of your teams. And when we are in the channel level, more about the concrete interactions that you have with the customers. It can be by email, on the phone, it can be through the chatbot, for example. But you also want to convey the same message through the interactions. And the CX principles help you by making these actions very concrete to improve the interactions that you have. So you implement them in such a way, and it's very small maybe, but it says like the concrete actions are that you have a chat function live 24/7, because you want to know, you want to give the customer the feeling that they know what to expect. So if you have that as a principle, you want to make sure that in your actions they can actually perceive that as well. What makes a good CX ambition? It really describes the internal and external context. So what do we mean by that? It's taking into account your customer insights, the market insights, your business strategy, but also your brand promise and the insights on market and trends. So we take a look at all of those documents and all of those components, and then we build the foundation for the CX principles from there. It also describes the desired customer experience. So this is a to-be state, right? It's in the future. You want customers to say or feel or experience this about your brand. So you're not there yet, but it sets an ambition. At the same time, we really make sure that it's aligned with your overall business strategy and your vision of the organization, so that you go into the same direction. A second step, once you have defined the CX ambition, so you have your goal clear, so what are customers going to say in 3 years from now, then you want to determine in what customer journeys this comes to play. So we have another webinar about this. It's called Journey Management, where they talk a bit more about all these layers of the different journeys. I won't go into detail now, but you can have a look at that webinar if you're interested in knowing more about that. But what I want to tell you here is that once you have your journey framework, you have your overview of your journeys, you can actually also pinpoint what CX principles are most relevant in what part of these journeys, and spot some opportunity areas to improve the interactions there. What do we mean by that? So once you have your journey, you have a specific curve, then you can say, okay, either we are going to raise the bar, and I go into a bit more examples in a few seconds. You can merge steps within this journey. You can relieve the pain of the customer, or you can extend the journey or end it with a peak. So some examples to clarify those. So for example, you have Pathé. When you order a ticket online, you avoid to stand in the queue when you want to go to the cinema. Or Coolblue says anything for a smile. So that's an example of raising the bar. At the same time, you have IKEA. We might have all been to that store, but at the end, you can actually buy a hot dog or ice cream for just €1. So that's the peak at the end of the journey. A third step, once you have identified the key moments in the customer journeys, and also I will tell you a bit later in the fourth step that you can already start without having those journeys, but I get to that. First of all, I want to let you know how you tailor the CX strategy to your teams. So we talked a lot about the CX ambition and principles, how to define it, and then you have this one-pager at the end. So you come to the place where you have defined what it is that you actually want your employees to realize. First of all, we actually deliver them in the brand style so that it's easy to adapt by the teams. And we create them always in the style so you can just use it internally. Next to that, you can actually sit down with all the teams. So marketing, sales, you have the R&D, maybe you have HR, the customer contact center. And we are going to sit down with every team to see, okay, what is the current way of working? What are you already doing when we have those principles? What do you do already in the current situation? What are opportunities to implement parts of these CX principles into your way of working? And do we see some challenges? And if we do, what do we need to do to make sure that we come across those challenges and we actually make sure that it's implemented in the right way for each team? Or what you can do is do a Kickstart campaign. So this is really a week in which you take a team through the customer experience, so through the CX ambition and the CX principles, and you help them to understand what's the added value of them, how are you going to use it in your daily work. We talked a lot about the CX ambition and principles, but there is another element that is also part of your CX strategy. And this is, how are you going to decide on which channels to improve, so you know what the experience of the interaction should be, and in what channels are you going to implement the changes that you're going to make. So let's have a look at an example. So a customer channel strategy really involves that you map all the stages of the journey. So what are the steps that a customer is taking, and what interactions do they have with your company? At the same time, you actually map all of the different channels that you have. So to see, okay, what are the channels that are important in what stage of the journey? And what is actually our strategy behind it? Do you want to be app first? Do you want to be like creating a platform, like from a website point of view? But that's like decisions you have to make on a strategic level. So here's an overview of all the steps that we took when creating this customer channel strategy. So you start with this vision and CX principles, so you define the ambition. Then you look at all the channels that you have, and you are going to determine what is our channel strategy. And thereby you create like, okay, what choices and what activities do we need to put on the roadmap for the next year to actually make this happen, and make the desired customer experience or achieve the desired customer experience across your channels. A last step that I want to dive into is, once you have done all that, you have made the strategic choices, you actually want to make a plan of how you're going to involve your teams and how you're going to implement it in the next years. So here what you see is like you have the pyramid, all the layers of the organization, from strategy to your operational teams, and you have defined your CX ambition. And what you see is like actually from the ambition, from more the strategic layer, you want to go to the journey levels and the channel levels and the customer operations level. A next step is to tailor the program to your organization. So what you see here is an image of a program from 0 to you have implemented the customer experience as you envisioned it, but it doesn't always go in this line. However, in the first stage, we see at our clients that it's really important to first get ready, so find the momentum to make sure that you are all aligned as a leadership to create the CX ambition and principles, and make sure that you are aligned on the direction that you're going into, because this is going to be implemented by your journey and channel teams, for example, and helps you to prioritize what is going to be the activities on the roadmap. So therefore, it's really important that you are aligned in the first stage and you envision how the change is going to look. So you really make this plan together already. Once you're in the journey level, you actually start to organize the governance. So who is going to be responsible for what parts? And you start to roll it out maybe first in one journey team, you go to another journey team, or if you don't have the journeys yet, the example I said before, you can go to the current way of working and implement, for example, in your marketing team, you can implement the CX principles already there. So to give an example, you have, for example, your brand guidelines, and you're going to check already with the CX principles, what do we need to change to make sure that we implement those CX principles already within the current guidelines of our brand. That can be a possibility. Then you make sure you have an agreement before you really are going to scale up to all the other journey teams. And on the channel level, you can then start creating the backlog for initiatives to improve all the interactions that you have and do that one by one. So you can see or have a test, build test and measure cycle on each of the interactions to see what works best before you really scale up. So on the operations level, you already start tracking and monitoring all the measurements to see where the customer experience goes up and where you need to improve. What we have seen at our clients is that integrating the CX ambition and strategy actually involves two streams. So you have the leadership, who needs to be aligned and approves the direction that you're going to take, and they also approve the implementation plan that you made for rolling this out to your teams. On the other hand, you can already start practical. You can start with the current way of working of your teams, and you can standardize the way of working for departments by creating, for example, a CX playbook in which you define, okay, we have these principles and this is the way that they are going to be used. We also see sometimes at clients that they create a kind of criteria checklist in which you take the principles into account for further development of your customer experience. So I'd like to end this webinar by giving you 4 key takeaways. First of all, as I mentioned in the beginning, make sure that you ensure a customer-centric culture is a strategic objective at a company level, meaning that you really take into account, okay, we want to work on CX and it's also a priority by the leadership to work on that. A second is to combine strategic support from leadership with a hands-on pilot approach in your teams. So meaning that you can start small with one journey or integrate the CX principles in the current way of working. And lastly, tailor the CX principles to your channel strategy to assure relevance for implementation. Thank you for your time to listen to this webinar. I hope you find it inspiring. Also, if you want to know more about CX ambition and strategy, don't hesitate to reach out to us or look at one of our other webinars. That's also a possibility, and then we can get in touch and talk about a tailored program for you.